Hey guys, Culture here. Today we're going to discuss moral development. More specifically, we'll look at the different stages of moral development and how context can shape the choices we make.
I've got this one covered. Now, I may not be book smart, street smart, athletically or artistically talented.
Amen.
But when it comes to separating right from wrong, I'm the wisest man there is.
Crash, a week ago you opened up my computer, put a dead fish on my motherboard, and then sealed it back up. What on earth was morally justifiable about that?
It was funny. We all need laughter in our life. I'm making the world a happier place.
You know, it was impossible to wash the fish smell out. I had to replace my whole computer.
That's the funny part.
See this? This is why it's so important that we develop the ability to make good moral decisions. Without some kind of moral compass, we have nothing to guide us in life. When we're faced with difficult decisions, we can make ill-advised choices based on impulse. But if we put some thought into why we make these choices, we may be able to better our behavior.
Come on, you always overthink things. Just do what feels good. That's my philosophy. Want to eat some snacks? Go ahead. Don't feel like having a shower? Don't have to. Feel like knocking the ice cream out of a child's hand and laughing in their face as they cry? The world is your oyster, my friend.
Oh my god. Have you really done that before?
Who knows? I'm a man of mystery.
You're a horrible person. The way Crash thinks is incredibly juvenile, like the kid at kindergarten who throws a fit when they don't get the toy they want. Luckily for us, most people grow out of this phase and develop more sophisticated moral systems, which restrain their baser impulses. So the question is, what does this development look like? Why do kids do certain things that adults wouldn't? Or how do adults justify actions that seem childish? Are they all just selfish like Crash?
Hey!
You disagree?
Nah, not really. Just felt like I should at least pretend to care.
Many psychologists and philosophers have tackled the topic of moral development, trying to describe how people evolve ethical decision-making. Chief among them is Lawrence Kohlberg, an American psychologist. In 1958, Kohlberg undertook a study in which he posed 10 moral dilemmas to a group of 72 boys from Chicago between the ages of 10 and 16. Kohlberg wasn't interested in the boys' answers to these moral dilemmas, but in the reasons behind the answers they gave. The most famous dilemma from this set became known as the Heinz Dilemma.
Oh, I know this one. The Heinz Dilemma is when you eat too many baked beans for breakfast, and then you remember you're taking a 4-hour-long road trip that day.
No, Crash.
The question is, do you fart consistently during the whole road trip and try to vent the farts out through the window? Or do you hold the farts in until you reach your destination, cramping and squirming in your seat while risking the dreaded wet fart from too much pressure?
No, it isn't. The actual Heinz Dilemma is as follows. A man called Heinz finds out his wife has a rare form of cancer. A drug has just been discovered that would cure his wife, but the manufacturer is selling it for $2,000, 10 times the $200 it takes to produce. Heinz doesn't have nearly enough money to buy the drug, so he asks his friends and family and scrapes together $1,000. He goes to the drug manufacturer, but they refuse to sell the drug for this price. Heinz explains his situation and asks if he can pay half now and half later. But still, the drug manufacturer refuses. Distraught and desperate to save his wife, Heinz decides to break into the drug manufacturer's store and steal the drug. The question is, should Heinz have stolen the drug?
Oh, I know this one!
Calm down, let's give everyone a moment to think about it. Think about why or why not you believe Heinz should have stolen the drug. While you're at it, think about these questions as well. What should the consequences of Heinz's actions be? Does it change anything if Heinz doesn't love his wife? What if it was a complete stranger? Is the drug manufacturer at fault if Heinz's wife dies? Really, pause the video for a moment and think over these questions. Okay, keep your answers in mind as we go through the rest of the video. Kohlberg used this and similar dilemmas as a kind of moral barometer to detect where a person was in their development of moral reasoning. Kohlberg defines 6 stages of moral development, which each person has to step through in order, beginning with the obedience versus punishment stage. In this stage, a person abides by rules for rules' sake. Only young kids really fall into this category, where whatever mum says you do, or you'll face a tongue lashing. Using this level of moral reasoning, most people would say that Heinz was wrong to steal the drug because stealing is bad and you'll go to jail. Rule? You can't steal. Punishment? Naughty corner. Jail time.
Oh, I didn't go through that stage. I was a lawbreaker from the start. A rebel. When the doctor tried to spank my butt, I said, That ain't how it's gonna be, boss.
Sure you did. The second stage is individualism and exchange, in which the person learns that there aren't just one set of rules, and that each person can act in their own self-interest. This level of moral reasoning is still usually pretty shallow though, rarely considering other people's feelings. In the Heinz Dilemma, someone at this level might say that Heinz should steal the drug because he loves his wife, and saving her would make him happy. Or they could argue that he shouldn't steal the drug, because he'd get sent to prison, and that would suck for him. The unifying trait here is that it's a self-centered motivation, so I'm guessing this is probably where Crash would slot in. Together, these first two stages form the pre-conventional level of moral development, typically occupied by children.
Sounds like the place to be. Why grow up and mature when you can scream when you don't get what you want and kick people's shins for the hell of it?
For those of us higher-minded people, we may progress to the third stage of moral reasoning. Good boy, good girl. That may not sound much more mature, but I assure you it is. At this level, the person is capable of weighing other people's opinions of themselves and their actions, and factor that into their decisions. Essentially, it's a kind of morality by consensus. Would other people think what I'm doing is right? Heinz stealing the drug could be frowned upon or applauded, depending on the watcher-on's point of view. But what's important here is that the opinion of the other person is factored in at all.
I call people at this level betas. They're too worried about what other people will think of them. Weak. You know my motto. Dance like nobody's watching. Love like you've never been hurt. Sing like nobody's listening. And headbang like a goddamn legend. Oh yeah!
Moving on to the fourth stage, we have maintaining social order. In this stage, the person is concerned with conserving a set of social rules that have been laid out. The most obvious example would be the law, but it could be any socially constructed set of rules, like etiquette, obligation, and so on. To someone at this level, they might argue that Heinz can't steal from the drug manufacturer just because he feels he has a good reason. If everyone broke the law when they thought they had just cause, we'd have chaos. But it's not so cut and dry. Someone else in that same level could believe in the etiquette of being a good husband, and so they need to steal the drug to uphold those standards.
If you want to be a good husband, here's what you do.
Here we go.
Help out around the house. Ask your wife how her day was. Treat her to something special once in a while. Keep the romance thriving, and every night before you go to bed, tell her you love her and that you don't know what you'd do without her.
Wow. That was really sweet of you, Crash.
If you do all that, she'll be so over the moon she won't even realize you're running an underground poker game out of your garage. What noise, honey? I'm just installing the baby seat in the car. I'll be up in a few hours. Oh, be a dear and chuck a slab in the fridge, would you?
Okay, that's it. No more over-the-counter cough medicine for you. The third and fourth stages I just described make up the conventional level of moral development, occupied by teenagers and most adults. But we can go further, to the fifth stage of moral development, known as the social contract. In this stage, the person is able to decide upon their own principles to live by, which go beyond any one culture's agreed upon rules. Yeah, social order exists for a reason, but it's important to sometimes flout these rules when you have a personal truth that you believe in. To someone like this, they might acknowledge that Heinz had to steal given the situation he was in, because life is more valuable than money, even though stealing is still, on the whole, a bad thing to do. Interestingly, from a cursory glance, the actions of people in Stage 5 can be very similar to the actions of people in Stage 2. But that's why Kohlberg wasn't just interested in what people do, but why they do it as well.
Sounds like I'm actually more morally developed than you. I've got my own principles, and I stick by them no matter what anybody says.
Yeah, remember when you deliberately knocked that soft drink out of my hand last week? And it sprayed all over my clothes? Right in front of the potential sponsors for our channel?
That was hilarious!
And remember when I accidentally bumped you and you spilt a teensy bit of water on your shirt and you immediately burst into tears and started pummeling me with your fists, screaming, "Why? How could you do this? You've ruined me."
I may or may not have forgotten the episode due to my blind rage, but please, continue.
My point is your morals aren't consistent. You get upset if something bad happens to you, but see no issue when it happens to someone else. That's the difference between Stage 2 and Stage 5.
Oh, please, there's not a person alive who's that morally righteous. You'll just have to settle for me, who's righteous in every other way. Totally tubular, wow!
You're kind of right, actually. Not everyone reaches Stage 5 by any means, but even rarer is Stage 6. Universal ethical principles. At this stage, the person holds in their mind a moral standard which is, quote-unquote, objectively true, something which surpasses the contemporary ideas of morality and can be considered right only by a truly impartial judge. One could believe that immediate danger to human life is always more important than material wealth, and so Heinz is obligated to steal the drug. The examples of proposed individuals at this level include people like Martin Luther King and Gandhi.
Ah, Gandhi, our old friend. we meet again. Gandhi, it's over. I loved you in Clone High, but I've learned some things about you. Terrible things. I denounce you. Goodbye, Gandhi. Goodbye forever. Gandhi, no, I said no!
I'm not exactly a big fan of this sixth stage. Firstly, it's purely hypothetical. Kohlberg didn't have any responders in his study who actually exhibited the traits associated with this stage. Secondly, it's getting a little too philosophical and abstract for my taste. Who's to say there are any universal truths when it comes to morality? I mean, people are picking them themselves, but the morals they're picking as objective are subjective because they're picking them and—
Culture, please stop. I still don't understand where the moles disappeared to in Whack-A-Mole, so there's no way I'm taking this in.
Good point. These fifth and sixth stages make up the post-conventional level of moral development, and it's rare for people to reach this level of moral conscience. So there you have it. Kohlberg's 6 levels of moral development. Now that's not to say that Kohlberg's theory hasn't come under some scrutiny from other psychologists. The most common criticism of Kohlberg's work is that it's purely hypothetical. How people say they would act in a given situation is often very different from what they would actually do. Others go further, saying that the very idea of moral rationale behind your actions is nonsense. We do things based on our emotions. Moral intent only comes into play afterwards when we're trying to explain ourselves or sway people's opinions.
So I just wasted 10 minutes of my life listening to some cockamamie theory? That's a fun word, hey? Cockamamie?
Oh yeah, it's hilarious. So while the theory has its detractors, it's still a fantastic jumping off point for seeing how developed people's moral judgments are. Even better, by embracing this progression of moral development, we become more open to other people's ways of judging a situation and understanding how people justify their actions. It's not about right and wrong, but about the method behind it.
And if there's anything this world needs a little more of, it's understanding fucking cockamamie.
Yep.
And acceptance.
Indeed.
And a wrestling match between Keanu Reeves and Norman Reedus.
Couldn't agree with you more. See you all soon.